Hey everybody, welcome to Coffee Connections. My name is Seth Weiner and I am your auctioneer taking a break from swimming in the pool to broadcast with you all today. It's summertime. I absolutely love swimming. And here's the secret. I live in an apartment complex, and if I go swimming in the afternoon, I get the pool to myself for the most part. Sometimes the kids are in there, but they move out of the way for my laps. At any rate, we're not here to talk about my swimming, although I could talk about swimming all day long. I even have blue on today just because of the ocean. Well, the pool more than the ocean. We don't have oceans here in Atlanta, but you know what we have? We have trees, and we've got lots of trees thanks to our guests today. Folks, we've got Mike Vinciquerra here, the business development manager, and he's charged with developing strategic partnerships and funding relationships with corporations and local governments to support Trees Atlanta's work in protecting and restoring Atlanta's tree canopy. And God, I love the canopies here. If you don't live in Atlanta, you don't know. But when you come here, you drive, we get this wonderful canopy shade through so many neighborhoods. It's the greenest place on earth, I think. Well, other than like a rainforest, but all right, we'll get there. Mike works in close collaboration with the co-executive directors, the director of development, the marketing team, and program leads in an effort to leverage the staff's expertise in urban forestry restoration and maintenance. He is the primary point of contact for their existing municipal partners with the goal of maintaining and growing planting and maintenance contracts, as well as developing new relationships as the organization expands the neighborhoods where they work all through the metro Atlanta. Their work, you don't see a tree probably that they haven't had a planting involvement with. It's amazing. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to bring Mike in here in just a second. Let's get all of our stuff and boom, like that. Mike, how are you?
Seth, I'm fantastic. If I didn't know any better, I'd think that you might sell nonprofits for a living. That was a better introduction I could have given myself. Thank you for that.
Well, listen, when it comes to trees and planting and all this sort of stuff, I think of the coffee tree. Are you a coffee drinker?
I am a coffee drinker. I love coffee.
Yeah, okay. Well, do you have a coffee mug?
I've got one here. It's a special mug. I just got it from my wife for her birthday. Maybe I can hold it up here if you guys.
Oh, yeah. Here, hold it steady. What's it? Shut up and let me practice my people skills. Oh, that's perfect.
It's perfect for someone in business development, right? It's very good.
Absolutely. All right. With coffee, you drink coffee daily?
Yes, although I found I have to water it down with a little decaf from time to time, or else it's a little too much for my mind. But yeah, we love dark roast around here. And
yeah, are you more of a home drinker or a coffee shop drinker?
We are definitely a grind at home and put in our own filtered water, and we're the at-home coffee snobs, so we enjoy a cup of coffee throughout the week.
Now, you mentioned grinding your own coffee. Are you also more of a French press, or are you doing the traditional drip?
We're a little lazy. We do have an old-fashioned espresso machine that I do utilize from time to time, but we do the drip more often than not.
Well, you express yourself enough without the espresso, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, hey, let's jump into talking about trees. I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Mike. And tell everyone, maybe many folks don't know Trees Atlanta. Tell everyone about Trees Atlanta.
Yeah, so thank you very much. We've been around since 1985. Marsha Bansley founded our organization along with the Junior League and Central Atlanta Progress in the city of Atlanta as a partnership, because there were essentially no trees downtown. Back in the mid-'80s, there had been a lot of development, and so the preponderance of downtown was asphalt and concrete and buildings. So that first year we planted 40 trees. We have since grown significantly thanks to our volunteers and generous donors, but we're now planting about 7,000 trees per year. And the thing that's really changed is where we plant those trees. So back in the day, again, we were focused in downtown, but we plant now all over the city of Atlanta. And one of my jobs was to try to form more formal partnerships with a lot of the other municipalities and counties around Metro Atlanta. So we're now working with 12 different metropolitan areas in Atlanta, and it really goes all the way around to I-285, and in many cases we're going beyond. We've planted as far away as Commerce, Alpharetta. We're talking to the folks down in Newton who lost a lot of trees owing to the tornadoes several months back. So our geography has definitely expanded, and something that we hope under a controlled format we can continue to do, because not only does urban Atlanta need trees, but beyond, many of the suburbs could use some trees in their villages and so forth as well. Beyond that, one of the big things that we've gotten, we've had success with is the volunteering. That has been the key to Trees Atlanta's growth over the last 36 years now, because we have a limited staff. We've got about 45 staff members throughout the year, and that actually swells in the summer to as many as 80 because of all the maintenance we have to do. But the trees, 7,000 trees can't plant themselves, and so we've got a myriad of dedicated volunteers who work with us regularly throughout the year. And then also many corporations, many local communities will come out and support a planting in their own backyard. And so those are, we had the last full year we had before COVID, we had 36,000 volunteer hours donated to Trees Atlanta, which, when you put those numbers on that, it's near $1 million in terms of value. But beyond that, it's the community. It's the fact that people are investing in their own backyard, and they're going to keep an eye on those trees as they grow to make sure that they're not being taken out for the wrong reasons.
That's fantastic. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of man hours for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So when I look at Atlanta, I see trees everywhere. And we live in these forests. It's amazing, the amount of birds and wildlife and everything. But it's really one of my favorite parts. Where I sit here, I live in Toco Hills, and I look out of my window and there's trees everywhere. My house in Decatur, when I lived there was trees everywhere. Now, a lot of those trees were a little older. A lot of them were like the pine trees that are really, really tall and skinny. And when the wind comes in, they are flying all over the place. And then occasionally they fall onto the house. So when it comes to the trees that you're planting, what kind of trees are you primarily planting these days?
Well, it's a variety, because different trees grow in different types of environments. So our favorite trees to plant would be the native oaks, the live oaks, not live oaks up here, but the white oaks, the red oaks, the willow oaks. There's a whole bunch of oaks that do well in this climate when they have enough space to grow. We love to plant tulip poplars. We'll plant bald cypress, different varieties of maple. So the large canopy trees are the trees that provide the most environmental benefit. They provide the most wildlife habitat, the most shade for our sidewalks, absorb the most storm water. And so those are our preferences. Now, but when you get in tough situations, or you're planting along the sidewalks like we often have to do in the city, you may only have 3 feet to plant. So we do plant a lot of crepe myrtles. It's not a native tree, but it is a very hardy tree. It's not an invasive tree. It doesn't reproduce and take over native forests like many invasive plants do. But it's very hardy, and frankly, they're beautiful throughout the year. We'll plant redbuds, which are also a beautiful street tree. And so there's a variety. We will plant pines occasionally, but the majority of what we're planting is more hardwoods and planting trees that are really native to the Piedmont area of the state. But you mentioned Toco Hills. One of my kids' favorite parks is Mason Mill. Oh,
I love Mason Mill. That's my running spot. If you ever see a guy going kind of fast but slow, that's me.
Well, it's a beautiful park, and one that they've put a lot of work into. And we're actually talking to DeKalb County about potentially doing some invasive work there. That's one of the programs I didn't mention that's been growing for us, but because of need. When you see English ivy and kudzu and wisteria growing up trees, and there are places in Mason Mill that are like that. That needs to be removed, because what's happening, and a lot of people don't realize this, is those vines can be beautiful, particularly wisteria in the late spring when it gets the beautiful purple flowers. But what it's doing is stealing all the nutrients from the trees. They're climbing up the trunk. They will cover up the leaves of the trees and steal the sunlight, which of course is critical for trees to grow and thrive. And so what we do, our teams go in, and many times with the help of volunteers, we start to pull those vines back. We will apply some pesticides or herbicides, as needed, but the majority of the work we do is by hand, and we try to return those forests to a native state. So Mason Mill is one that I ride through it on my bike with my kids. When we go through there, you appreciate nature, but my eyes are seeing the things that are wrong, whereas most people see all the things that are right about that park, which is this beautiful open space that people can recreate. So we're trying to make it a little bit better even than it is today.
Well, that's the thing about Atlanta. One of the main things I love about Atlanta, especially these parts we're mentioning, it's so, well, to me, it's like manicured. It's like so well kept and thought out. Thought out's really the way. I mean, we've got a lot of the creek systems and all that, but around it all, it's just well manicured. And so to my eye, I'm looking and seeing how beautiful things are and how thought out it is. And you talked about there was no trees in downtown, and now there are. And I mean, it takes many years for them to grow, but as they grow, you notice this, and it's like, wow, like it's really, really well kept and really thought out.
Yeah, I think that's very true. There are a lot of tree lovers here in town who appreciate all the value that we get from having trees in our communities. And downtown in particular is an area that we're working closely with our longtime partners at Central Atlanta Progress to add at least 8,000 trees to downtown as part of their new master plan over the next 10 years. Now, that's not going to be an easy task because it's going to involve a lot of concrete cutouts. But when you look at it, you have to invest, because what's going to happen if you invest today, 5 and 10 and 15 years down the road, if you take care of the trees, that's where you really start to get the benefits of the cooling effect. Because I don't know about you, but when I walk through Midtown or downtown and there's a stretch maybe where there aren't very many trees, and you hit the trees, the difference is noticeable.
Oh yeah, you're talking about 10 degrees easy.
That's right. And so the more comfortable we can make people in terms of walking places downtown to Midtown, the more we can reduce our pollution, because you're not going to have as many cars on the road. The more those retailers and restaurants are going to be frequented, because people can get out and they're going to enjoy it and walk and find new places to go. So there's a lot of economics that are involved in tree planting, and Central Atlanta Progress sees both the environmental and economic benefits, and it's one of the reasons why they've been a great partner of ours for so many years.
Yeah, that's great, because I was going to say it must be challenging at times to work with the cities to get them to move their budget to feel that this is the priority. It could easily be put aside, like, who needs trees? Well, the reality is, you just said, it's like, well, okay, I hear you. However, if that restaurant's going to be successful to have that outdoor patio, if there's trees there, if you're building this complex here and you don't plant trees here that are going to grow and give shade, that restaurant's never going to last. That property will never last. And you got to think about that.
That's true. And you mentioned City of Atlanta, and they're also a partner of ours. Again, they were part of our founding group back in 1985. And they have been one of our biggest supporters through what's known as the Tree Trust Fund. And what that is when someone takes a tree out, if it is not dead, dying, or hazardous, they will have to pay a permit fee to take the tree out. Well, those funds, or those fees, go into a fund that can then be doled out by the city in contracts for folks like us and other landscape providers as well, to go out and replant trees throughout the city. So the city has done a good job over many years taking those funds and reinvesting, because they see the value in the tree canopy. Now, we can make the tree ordinance better, and we could talk about that if you want. That's something we're working on very hard along with the city. But at least the city does see the value of the trees and knows that that's a calling card for Atlanta. And
replenishing trees, folks that have lost trees and whatnot in their front yard, and which a lot of it, correct me if I'm wrong, when there's a drought 10 years ago, that can affect trees today, and why we see these waverings happen.
That's absolutely true. We've had several droughts. I moved here in 2002. We've had a couple different droughts over time, and you don't see the effect of those droughts the year it happens. You see that effect, exactly what you said, 5 and 6 years down the road, because the tree started to die. It was really struggling to survive when it had no water. And eventually those trees become weak, but you may not know it. And so a homeowner may have a tree in their yard that looks healthy, but when you start to see those sprigs of dead branches, that's when you have to have an arborist come out and take a look at the tree, because it may be nothing, but you'd much rather be safe than sorry. Because what we hate to see is when trees fall and destroy property. Sometimes people get hurt because of falling trees. Thankfully, it's very, very rare. But when property gets damaged, people have a bad taste in their mouth about what that tree represented when it was in their yard or on the street next to their house.
Oh yeah.
And so if you take care of trees by having an arborist look at them and trim if need be, or in some cases it is necessary to take trees out, you can save a lot of that heartache. Get the tree out, put a new tree, and let it start growing again and providing the benefits for your
yeah, and just working with your neighbors to not pass the buck, but to share the buck, because the property lines, and that's your tree, and oh god, it gets so crazy with insurance and everything else. So a lot of ways to deal with that on the forefront. When you see a problem, deal with it instead of waiting till it drops.
It is true. I mean, their trees are something you can ignore until it's time to look up and you start to realize maybe this something needs to be done about it. But I'm just called an arborist today from my yard. I'm happy to say I've got a lot of trees around my house, and if you take care of the trees, they will definitely take care of you.
And in replenishing trees, so where I was going to is Doesn't Trees Atlanta also do like I could have swore there's like a dogwood tree, a program where you can pick up the tree and plant it or something like that?
So we have native tree sales. You may be confusing us with the Dogwood Festival with our.
No, no, not that. No, no, no. It's Trees Atlanta. I remember that.
So we do give away trees. Oftentimes they're with our municipal partners who are looking for ways to productively spend funds they have in a tree bank. Um, but beyond that, our native tree and plant sales, we have one plant sale and one tree sale and two plant sales per year. Oftentimes we have them at the Carter Center, which is
Oh, okay.
for a lot of people to come to.
Oh yeah.
We will bring in native plants and vines that people have trouble finding elsewhere. And there are a number of other organizations around town. The Botanical Garden does a great job with this, where they'll have plant sales that people can come in, and you don't necessarily have to go to a big box store. You can find stuff that you won't find elsewhere. And so it's a fundraiser for us, but it's also a great chance for people to come in and talk to both our arborists as well as arborists that are volunteering with us on that day, learn about what may be a great choice for your yard, what may generate more pollinator-friendly environment. And so they're great community events. They raise money for us, and they also raise awareness about the importance of trees.
Yeah, and you definitely have a very busy calendar. When the pandemic hit, did that give you a chance to kind of catch up on things, or because people were going outdoors more? Talk a little bit about the last year for you all.
That's an interesting question, because for us, I mentioned the importance of volunteers. Well, a lot of people didn't want to volunteer. A lot of people couldn't volunteer because
Right.
of health concerns. And so we had to, under the leadership of a volunteer director, reinvent ourselves in terms of what is a safe outdoor project. So fortunately, our projects are outdoors. So that is a big bonus in terms of what the CDC had always recommended, which is outdoor activities are safer. So we required masks. We did social distancing. We asked people to only plant trees with those that they came with, maybe they live with. We sanitized all our tools between events, trying to do everything we could to make it as safe as possible. And what we found happened, we still had volunteerism drop dramatically. The biggest piece of that was corporate groups. So for instance, Home Depot has been a longtime partner of ours, and they may send out 5, 6, 7 corporate groups per year, 20, 30 people that will come out and plant with us. Fantastic partner. They were not able and willing to do that during the last year because they don't want to take the liability. If they're not asking their employees to come into the office to work, they don't want to ask their employees to come to a central location to do volunteer work either. So it makes perfect sense. And 99% of the companies that we work with were in that exact same boat. What we started to see is that, well, first of all, last year, what we ended up seeing was that a lot of our dedicated volunteers volunteered more. Those that were comfortable doing what we do outdoors, those that had great experience, we saw a big uptick in, say, the top 200 or 300 volunteers that work with our organization, and they helped to make it happen. But then what we've seen in the last few months is companies starting to, inch their way back in, bringing out 10 or 15 people. Some people bring a little bit more than that, but knowing that we're going to be masked, we're going to be separated, we're outside, and getting more comfortable with the fact that a lot of their folks are now vaccinated. And it's really starting to open the door for us to not be so stressed about if we're going to have the manpower to put all the trees in. I'm happy to say we had a goal of about 7,000 trees last year. Our planting team miraculously, along with our forest restoration team, planted about 7,000 trees. So we got it done, but not without a lot of investment by a lot of our volunteers.
If someone's got a group, maybe a school group or church group, temple group, something like that, or just a networking group, whatever group they're in, they can go to treesatlanta.org and connect with you to do something, or would they just go to the calendar and sign up?
Yeah, they can do a variety of things. So there are descriptions of all the upcoming projects. Usually we have it out there for about the next 30 to 60 days. That's how long the window is. And thank you for pulling that up. But if you scroll down, it's not only our volunteer projects that are out there, but also our education events. Maybe you want to take a walking tour of the east or west side Beltline, where we've done a ton of planting and maintenance work. Maybe you want to find out about a speaker series we have coming up. So there's all kinds of events we have going on, and it's pretty much every week of the year.
Yeah, it looks almost like every day. You're busy.
Yep. We've got got bike tours. You want to learn how to prune? That's one of the things. We have pruning classes, 101, 102, and 103. You can become an expert pruner. And pruning is one of the things people forget about with their trees. With young trees, if you prune them early and you prune them correctly, you'll get a much stronger tree, one that's going to tend to be much healthier as it grows. And so you can learn how to do all that through these classes. They have been virtual. I believe we're starting to move now to put those back into in person, which of course is much more interactive.
And with the Beltline itself, how involved were you all or are you involved with the Beltline and the tree planting there?
Yeah, another great partner of ours. So we've been involved. Greg Levine, one of our co-executive directors, kind of envisioned a linear arboretum along the Beltline back when Ryan Gravel was, really starting to talk up the whole project maybe 10, 12 years ago. And so we have planted the majority, not all, but the majority of the trees and a lot of the native grasses and wildflowers and shrubs that you see along the east and west side Beltlines. We will plant in the coming year. The South Side Trail is going to be built out. And I talked to our planning director this morning. We estimate we'll put about 1,500 trees on the South Side Trail over the course of the next 2 years or so in conjunction with the Atlanta Beltline. So it's a great chance for us to bring nature into the city. So many people use the Beltline, particularly on the east side. But as we connect the east and west sides, I think we're going to see much more volume across the whole trail. But
very much
bring the city to people. There's signage. They can learn about some of the plants that are along the way. And frankly, if you've been on the west side Beltline, it is absolutely gorgeous right now. It's a little bit different in terms of the aesthetic versus the east side, but it's quieter. And the planting over there is just beautiful. They really filled up.
I was at Monday Night Brewery over. Is it Monday night? Yeah, yeah. I was looking out there. And I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I got to go and run on that side because the other side down by Ponce and everything. It's just, you're not running. It's just.
Well, it's an obstacle course. You get a little bit of everything. I think.
Very much so. Well, that's great though. It's a fantastic thing to have an outdoor tourist and gathering spot like that. But I kind of think it's really interesting when you look and you think about the trees and once it's all connected, you'll be able to see by the size of the trees and the canopy covering because it might look like it's all, been there forever at that point, but no, you'll be able to see the aging of it.
No, that's true. And one of the interesting things about it is when it's completed, and again, this may take another 8 to 10 years, we're not sure. We believe it will be the longest linear arboretum in the entire world, about 22
Oh, wow.
So hopefully, when that happens, we'll call up the Guinness Book and see if they can come out and certify us this level. So that'd be a nice calling card for Atlanta, along with so many other things.
Yeah, and all these trees, that's a lot of green, but it takes a lot of green to make that green happen. Where do you get your money?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. The predecessors to me and the folks that work here now have done such a great job working with the community and developed a great reputation that we've got a variety of funding sources. So we work with many of the foundations here in town, many of the national foundations as well that are big supporters. Corporate America in Atlanta has been growing by leaps and bounds. A lot of folks hiring, and a lot of those companies wanting to get out and do outdoor projects. So many of those have become our partners, some of the longest term ones. The Home Depot, Kaiser Permanente, Mercedes-Benz USA has been a great one over the last 6 or 7 years. And so that is a big source of funding for us. Maybe our audience doesn't know, we just completed our Root Ball 2021, which is our annual fundraising event. Our first virtual Root Ball caused a little bit of stress on part of the staff trying to pull this off for the first time, but that was back May 27th, and it went very, very well. I raised about $175,000
wow.
for our program. So again, corporate sponsors and a lot of individuals stepped up and supported that. And then beyond that, we've been setting new records the last few years in our individual giving, because I think what people have seen, we've always had great support from individual donors and homeowners around the city. But what we've seen is that, with all the activity, with all the trees that are actually coming out for new development around Atlanta, I think it's spurred some additional concern on behalf of the residents and citizens. And so they've been stepping up to assist us. And so it's been across the board. We're in the process right now of it's now the 2020 capital campaign, even though we're almost halfway through 2021, but we're raising funds to build and open our new headquarters. Be over in the Oakland City Adair Park part of town on the west side, not far from our operations center right now, over near Murphy's Crossing, very close to the west side Beltline. But we hope to be in that probably around mid-year 2022. And so we will be moving out of our current location in Reynoldstown around October, November of this year, be what I'd call without a home for maybe 8 months or so. But because we've been working virtually so much, we think we'll find a way to make it work.
You'll be working out of a treehouse somewhere.
Well, it's interesting. We closed our tree house last year. It was over there on Croc Street, which was our education facility. We ended up
Huh.
closing it because the lease ran out, but it was called the Tree House, and we're debating creative names for the new headquarters. So maybe we'll borrow the one you just mentioned.
Uh-huh. Now, what about you? You currently have an event space that you rent out for weddings. I believe bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I don't know.
We do. We have a couple of bat mitzvahs coming up in October before we shut things down. So absolutely, it is a pretty unique space. We just had a wedding there this weekend, which was the first one we've had since COVID hit. Things went well, but yeah, if you're looking for a unique space, it could be for a small corporate outing, could be for a birthday party, could be for a wedding, whatever it might be, engagement party. We can hold about 125 people seated, or about 200 in terms of kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the cocktail style.
Yeah.
So it is available for the next few months, and we have a lot of outdoor space there as well, which allows people to spread out if they need to.
And as you move into this new home base, will there be another event space, or is that?
There will be. We're moving into a place formerly known as the Bakery. It's about a 3-acre site on the west side. Right now, it's basically a large building with a lot of concrete and a few trees along the edges. When it's all said and done, as you might guess, it will be a green oasis. There will be a parking lot. There will be a building. Those are requirements for us. But we will have about 3 acres of space. We're going to add about 300 trees to the landscape, so it's going to be transformed, and that'll take a while for the trees to grow. But we will have a great event space there with a lot of outdoor space.
Oh, nice.
We'll bring folks in, and it'll be about a 5 or 10 minute walk to the Beltline itself, so pretty close.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, folks, those listening, those watching, treesatlanta.org, where he mentioned very clearly that the place that the property used to be the bakery. Well, the bakery had a lot of dough, and it takes a lot of dough to make the move. So make a donation, treesatlanta.org. It's money well spent, because it's, especially if you have kids, you want a green Atlanta. And also, not only a green Atlanta, one thing we didn't even really touch on too much is it's not just the canopy, it's not just the shade, it's the clean air. And as we get closer and closer to more electric cars. I mean, Atlanta's a very progressive city. I mean, how many Teslas are you seeing out there now? It's amazing how quickly the transition's happening. So I imagine that, especially with corporate America, if the corporation wants to get involved in, it's not just planting the trees because it's a good thing to do for canopy or a good way to connect your team, your team building, but also to breathe clean air.
Yeah, more and more companies are really pushing on environmental programs. They see the benefit from reducing their carbon footprint. They see the benefit from investing in the communities where their employees live and play. And so we're seeing more and more of the environmental, social governance type of action on the part of these corporations. And so, and the beauty is, the companies that are moving into town and adding employees, like the Microsofts, the Starbucks, some of these West Coast companies, Google, for instance, already have that as part of their ethos for being on the West Coast and investing a lot in the environment. So it's kind of also putting a spark underneath a lot of the companies that have been here for a long time as well. So it's good news. The companies see the benefits of it for both themselves, their reputations, but also the people who live here and their employees. So it's a win-win.
That's fantastic. And again, go to treesatlanta.org for more information or get involved. Mike, is there anything that we maybe didn't cover you wanted to bring back up?
Yeah, one new program we've got out there that I think is pretty innovative. We started something along with our partners at Georgia Power and the Georgia Association of Conservation Districts to install green infrastructure on residential lots. So we've gotten grants from the two organizations. And by the end of 2022, we expect to have installed these green infrastructure projects on about 44, 45 properties. What it is rain gardens, it's cisterns, it's dry wells. It's basically kind of the green infrastructure being scientific gardens, ways to capture rainwater before it rolls off a property, because these are in neighborhoods that have flooding issues. And so the water rolls off one property and ends up rolling down the hill into another property. It picks up pollutants on the way. It doesn't have a chance to filter out those pollutants. So what we're working with is these individual properties where we can install stone gardens, native grasses, trees, shrubs, and all these components filter the water, hold it temporarily while the storm is happening so that we don't overwhelm our sewage treatment facilities and end up with sewage spills. And this is a test project right now, but things have been going very well. And I think this is something that you're going to see more and more of over the next 3 to 5 years, because it's starting. I think it's going to have the effect of improving the environment for a lot of folks who are in areas of town that really haven't seen the investment that they need.
That's awesome. I mean, listen, if we learned anything from the what was it, orange tide or yellow tide or whatever it was up in the west coast of Florida, that the runoff of all the if you're killing the poison ivy with one chemical and then it rains, that's going somewhere. It's going somewhere. Drinking water down to, and like you said, might make your property look great, but just look where the water's going. It is.
The nice thing about these projects are they actually beautify the property that they're on as well. So you get all these environmental benefits, but when you look at them, the homeowners that we put them in so far have been thrilled with what they've seen. It just kind of adds something to their yard. It's a unique feature. And the nice thing is, then their neighbors ask about it and say, hey, wait, how do I get one of those? So it's, again, it builds off of itself.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I enjoyed chatting with you and learning more about Trees Atlanta, and I encourage everyone to go to treesatlanta.org. But before I let you go, I always have my guests recommend a future guest, and I was curious if there was an organization that you'd like to recommend to be on Coffee Connections.
Well, so I thought about that. We've got 7 partners who are part of what's known as the Atlanta Canopy Alliance, and 2 of which are friends of mine that do fantastic work for their organizations. One is Michael Hallecky, who's with Park Pride. They work with organizations around Atlanta to add park space, to beautify park space, and they do a great job. He's the executive director there and a fantastic guy. Additionally, Stacy Funderburk, who happens to be one of my neighbors here in the Camden Park area, is very involved in the community. He works for the Conservation Fund, where he's a regional counsel for Alabama and Georgia. But what they do is help conserve land. One project they worked on very recently was a 216-acre parcel that the city of Atlanta purchased in the south side of town that used to be a waste management facility, or was going to be, and is now basically a forest that has been untouched for about 50 years, and it's going to become a public park. So either of those gentlemen, fantastic guys, very knowledgeable, and I think they can share a lot of great stories with you about the work their organizations are doing.
Yeah, well, I'd love to learn more about it, and I appreciate the connections. And you may very well see my son and I volunteering at a Trees Atlanta event in the future, because that's kind of what we're going to be doing.
Only if you were the coach, Seth. You can take it off once you start, but we got to know it's you.
Well, maybe I'll wear a green one. I'll have to find a good tree color one. All right. Well, thanks again, folks. Go to treesatlanta.org. And on Thursday, June 17th, we're going to be visit with Erica Greenblatt with ADL Southern Division. And then the next closing out June, we've got Open Hands Atlanta, as well as Camp Twin Lakes as guests. So all Coffee Connections, past and future, can be seen at coffeeconnections.live. All right. Thanks again, Mike. Everyone have a great day.